Welcome back to another episode of The Doctor and the Good Fellow. I'm here with Uncle Ange and the esteemed Dr. Ron Gordon. Doc, last episode we talked about all this craziness with asbestos and talc and how everybody just sat on it. Nobody cared about people actually dying from this. And after you testified in a multitude of cases, you went on to write a book. A book that's fiction but based on fact. Tell me how that started and what drove you to do that.
Well, because my concern was the health of these women and men who used talcum powder, that it was absolutely necessary that they were aware that this had the potential of causing these cancers, and therefore I wanted to get this book out there so that they knew that they could go to their doctor and get tested and get diagnosed early, if possible, so that they wouldn't die, but they would be treated, whether it be surgically or any other way, and survive into the future, because these involve people that were in their 50s and up. And it was important to get this out there. So I took one case that I actually tested and testified on, which the woman had first an ovarian cancer and then developed a mesothelioma. They had no idea where the ovarian cancer causation was about, but then when she developed the mesothelioma after surviving surgery and treatment for the ovarian cancer, it became obvious that it was absolutely necessary to determine where this was coming from. Having developed mesothelioma, we knew that it was basically from asbestos, because 99% of the cases of mesothelioma were coming from, the causation was asbestos. So therefore, it probably was also the causation of the ovarian cancer. So with that knowledge, I wanted to present this in a book form for people to buy and people to understand the consequences of this, because at the end of the book, the woman dies. And at the end of the case, the actual case that went to trial, the woman died. So this was a case where she had no knowledge of what was going on, and I took the book through all the steps that she had taken, all right, to identify how the talc was the causation, all right. Basically, she couldn't answer the questions of the doctors, because until there was a mesothelioma, then the doctors started asking the questions. But it was a lawyer who got involved, who listened to them because she had seen an ad on TV from the lawyers' groups advertising that talcum powder causes mesotheliomas. All right, so she went to one of the lawyers. The lawyers then did enough questioning and came up with the fact that this was caused by her extensive talc use over time. And then ultimately this was taken to trial, and everything came out at the trial that in this particular case, I believe it was Johnson & Johnson, but it may have been other products as well that she had used over the years. And it ended up that in conjunction with all of these talcs that were contaminated, we were able to present it. And during the trial, it came out that Johnson & Johnson and a lot of these other companies knew there was asbestos in these in this talcum powder, and they ignored it. They didn't bring it to the public. They didn't put a warning on it. And what's even more interesting is that the talcum powder and the cosmetic products are not controlled by the FDA. They're controlled by their own organization, the cosmetics industry. And therefore, they didn't follow all of the suggested procedures for testing. And they went and in court, they used the inaccurate procedures that were also suggested. And that's what they relied on for their analysis of the asbestos in the talc. And that's why they said, well, as far as we're concerned, there's no asbestos in the talc.
Well, the question I got for you, Doc, is that since this podcast is being called, the doctor and the good fella, as a, whatever they want to call me, top associate, knock-around guy, a good fella, a wannabe, right? I got a great question for you. I'm sorry to hear about the lady. You said she passed away. And you did say she went to a lawyer. Okay. Yes. Did she win a settlement?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know the amount?
I think it was $10 million.
Okay. Now, that's music to my ears, as you know. For the life I came from, just to think about the money, where'd the money go? To the family?
Yes, because she died. So it was too late for her in this particular case, and the family got the money.
Because remember, yes, if it doesn't make dollars, it doesn't make sense. So for me, and why we have this kind of podcast, even though you and I went separate ways in life, you went for the schooling and I went for the streets after being in the food industry, when you say money, right away, boing, the antennas come up. And I'm saying to myself, well, did they pay? $10 million. I hope she rests in peace.
So, Doc, you can see where Uncle Ange is going with this. He's going to go home, and the next month he's going to buy 10 cases of talcum powder. He's going to pour it all over himself, and then he's going to contact you to get an attorney and sue Johnson & Johnson for at least $100 million. Am I correct, Uncle Ange?
Mr. Narrator, I tell you something. You might be sitting there, and you might be anonymous for the time being, but I got to hand it to you. You come up with the best. That's exactly what I was thinking of. Or how am I going to figure out how is Kathy using all this stuff and everything that I'm asking? Because once again, excuse me for being repetitive, if it doesn't make dollars, it doesn't make sense. And thank you for adding that and throwing that in the equation.
Well, let me give you another example.
Uh-oh.
Just recently, there was a case that I did the testing on, found the asbestos on. Although I was removed from the case, the lawyers ultimately won a decision against Johnson & Johnson for $966 million. And just prior to that, there was another legal case that the same law firm was involved with that was awarded in either Connecticut or Massachusetts, I'm not sure, for $42 million against Johnson & Johnson. So you can see where this is going. And what I don't understand is why Johnson & Johnson hasn't decided to try to settle these cases separately and away from a jury that understands that this stuff is detrimental.
Well, Doc, with the numbers you're throwing out, I'm sure when we take our next break, Angelo will be on his Amazon app ordering, 50, 60 cases?
My friend, without fail. But you know what I find interesting too, Doc? And all your work, all your years that you worked in the laboratories at the hospital and your studies on things like this, they got the nerve, and I really say it this way because you're my dear friend, to bring you in. You bring your expertise and your professionalism in, you talk to the jury, which, ladies and gentlemen, will segue into something that in the future you hear about my experience talking to a jury and what I did, and you'll probably hear the same thing in months to come from the narrator, and you were paid a minimal fee, which is a good fee, because you shared it with me. Why wouldn't you get a piece of the lion's share of what you did for these families? Now, I understand you testified for the plaintiffs. Am I correct? Okay. Without your testimony, and I think you've told me over the years, a lot of these cases wouldn't have come to fruition.
In some of them, yes. In some of them, no.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. But still, you paid that fee for the day, which you told me, which is intriguing. It was good, and they pay your expenses, and they fly you all over the country to do this. But I guess here we go again. Excuse me. The name of our show, right? The Doctor and the Good Fella. Why aren't you getting a larger piece of the pie, right? It sounds like things I've been through in my life where I just get the crumbs and the higher-ups get the big pieces, and I had to be satisfied with the crumbs. But I guess in your case, you're doing it for mankind.
Well, that's part of it. The other part of it is that generally expert witnesses in trials only all they get is their fee for the day, whatever it may be, and that's every other doctor that testifies. It depends on what they want to charge for the fee based on what they earn during the day. In their cases, surgeons tend to charge more than an internal medicine doc or another specialty, but because they make more, and it's based on how much you theoretically make on a regular day that you would have to go into court to testify.
Well, then this segues right into what we got to do, and I think the narrator would agree with me. Excuse me for using the term narrator, ladies and gentlemen, but that's what I like to call my dear friend. Even though he's one of the best interviewers, you know, he'll beat them all, right, with what he comes up with. Just listen to the questions that he'll ask. It's time that we unionize all you guys that testify. Okay, I'll become the business manager, all right, and I'll make sure that everybody gets their take, and those envelopes become bigger.
Well, you know what happens to most union bosses, Angelo. So good idea, but Doc Gordon did this for an altruistic reason, not for money, and that's what keeps him, on the truthful path of exposing the dangers of talcum powder. And what we're learning today, this is a dangerous substance that is in a plethora of products. I want to thank everybody for tuning in to the Doctor and the Good Fellow. Don't forget to like us and please subscribe.
Before you cut us off, sir, your high IQ, and I know how high it is, and Doc, I know how high your IQ is. You just used the word I'm unfamiliar with. What the hell? Forget about it. I do a lot of reading in the joint, but you guys use some words. I tell you something. I got to really listen and then break it down and figure it out. And thank God, that I got Siri, or AI, or ChatGPT, RCT, RAT, whatever the freak it's called. Okay, and I can use it. But, okay, and...
Well, don't forget, Ange, plethora is close to Panera, and you've been there plenty of times to pick up a dozen bagels. So just remember the word from now on. It means mucho. Again, thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to like and subscribe. The Doctor and the Good Fella.
Thank you, and thank you.
Thank you.